With bated breath, we looked at what was happening. Two black limousines drove straight toward each other. When the car suddenly stopped, I almost jumped from all the tension. Only a few minutes later, they got out of their cars. Our parents, like cowboys, stared at each other. Now, either they were going to start fighting again or finally bury the hatchet. Hi, my name is Arya, and my family's feuding with my boyfriend's family. Believe me, it turned our relationship into a survival game. They've been feuding since long before Justin and I met. Two of the richest families shared the most lucrative business in town, so the tension was at times comparable to a Hollywood movie. It's no wonder Justin and I had been conditioned from a young age to be enemies, and they tried to stop us from seeing each other again. But they failed. My folks rented an entire theater building to hold a meeting with their shareholders, reporters, the elite from the entire state, and even celebrities gathered there. But Justin's parents also showed up at the meeting. They were there with their entourage. Turns out they rented the building too. The theater was divided into two halves, and a war of the riches began. Each side tried to lure people in any way they could, from raffling off millions in the lottery to the performance of the world's biggest stars. And then our parents decided to use us as weapons. An argument broke out over which one of us was the best kid. Eventually, Justin and I got so mad that we ran away together. That's how we started getting to know each other. I was told Justin was a failure, that he started talking and reading when he was 12, and that he was never allowed out of the house. Of course, none of that was true. He turned out to be a great guy. I, on the other hand, according to his parents, was a rebel who steals money from her family and is under police surveillance for robberies all over town. Honestly, I expected you to attack me or steal my car. Justin rubbed his neck in embarrassment, and I thought you were going to babble and act like a little kid. I blushed in embarrassment. This feud is so stupid. Our parents are acting like children. That's true. So, peace? I held out my hand, and he reciprocated. We walked and talked for a long time that night, until we were surrounded by some agents that our families had hired. First, they had a fight amongst themselves. Then, they took us home. The lust for money and profit was stronger than love for their own children, and instead of just punishing us, our parents started making accusations against each other. According to one version, I was the crazy thug who kidnapped Justin from the party. According to my parents' version of the story, stupid Justin ran away, and I heroically rushed out to find him. Imagine yourself in our shoes. We decided to stay in touch out of spite. Then, we started seeing each other in secret. And before we knew it, our friendship turned into love. And our love was so strong that it was impossible to hide it. One day, my parents burst into my room like a hurricane, and they didn't look happy.
What is this, Arya? Can you explain this?
My father showed a picture of me and Justin kissing in the park. It's called love. Have you ever heard of it? I snapped.
Our daughter will never get involved with the Shepherd family. All they want to do is ruin lives, take away everything we have, leave us poor.
You want to do the same thing to them. Arya, this is different. My mother stayed in the room with me and decided to tell me all of the reasons behind the feud, about how the Shepherds betrayed the common cause and brazenly framed their friends, my family. The story my mother told me didn't sound like a lie. In her eyes, I saw the pain of being betrayed by someone very close to them. What did the Shepherds do to start such a feud? I decided to talk to Justin, but he disappeared. He wasn't online. He wasn't answering his phone. I already thought that he'd betrayed me, and it was all part of the Shepherd's evil plan. But one night, Justin came to visit me. Or rather, he climbed in through the window. As it turned out, his parents had told him the same story my mother had told me, but exactly the opposite. Our next decision was complete madness. I left a note, and we ran away. Our demand was a family meeting and a peaceful negotiation. This meeting is where I started my story. It's either us or your stupid feud, I shouted to my parents.
I'm staying with Arya. whether you want it or not. Justin addressed his parents. Imagine our surprise when we saw the look of embarrassment on their faces. They left the guards behind and decided to talk. But then, 2 more cars rushed into the square. 2 white limousines stopped next to each other. Grandma! I almost collapsed on the ground in surprise. Grandpa! Justin grabbed his head. Shepherd? My grandmother looked as if she was about to strike the man with lightning. Rosalind! Justin's grandfather banged his cane on the ground and launched into an attack. Our parents' altercation seemed almost playful compared to what was going on right now. Our families will never have anything in common, Justin! Come here, right now! My boyfriend had no choice. He couldn't argue with his grandfather. However, Grandma also took me by the hand and pulled me into her limo. Grandma scolded my parents like children and reminded them of the shepherd's heinous betrayal. She would not let me go and took me to her place to keep me under strict control. How do you know each other? Did you start this feud? I was confused and didn't know what was true anymore. Shepherd stole my most precious possession. Nothing could ever justify it. Grandmother's hands were shaking, and I knew she wasn't lying. It took me a long time to get her to talk, and she finally told me what happened between them. She and Justin's grandfather had been friends since high school. Back in their college days, when this town was still new, they had an idea that later made our families very rich. But money got to Shepherd's head. He turned his back on their friendship and stole something of value from my grandmother. He fled town for a few years, and my grandmother had to deal with everything on her own. She succeeded, managed to become one of the most prominent people in town, and then Shepherd showed up to take that away from her too. I couldn't believe my ears. We both cried when Grandma finished her story. I was suddenly ashamed of myself for hanging out with Justin and trusting him with my heart. My parents were right. We should avoid the Shepherds at all costs. I cut off all communication with Justin. When he tried to approach me on the street, the guards wouldn't let him. Back off, Justin. You may not be like your grandfather, but it's over between us. Your family's only rich because of our family. My grandfather is a great man. Don't talk about him like that. It's a war, Justin Shepherd, I said firmly. Yes, Arya Rosalind, the war is on. The media was flooded with breaking news, and now Justin and I were in it. I stayed with my grandmother to support her, but she would often just sit by the fireplace and stare sadly at the fire. I wanted to get back at Justin's grandfather, so I decided to go through my grandmother's old photos to find a photo that might be incriminating. But when I opened the album, all I saw were scraps of pictures, and then a burnt picture fell at my feet. When I picked it up, I almost screamed. It was a young shepherd. The second part of the picture was burned, but the backside still had the caption, Shepherd and Rosalind, love forever. The heart! He stole your heart! That's what you were talking about! I ran up to my grandmother with the picture. What? Where did you get that? Grandma snatched the picture out of my hands. In your album, Grandma! Did you love each other? No, she said sternly and threw the picture into the fire. That's where it belongs. But I already figured everything out. Of course, they were in love. Shepherd broke up with her. Was this whole family feud really about a broken heart? To find out, I took a desperate step and reached out to Justin. We met in secret, but once again, our versions didn't add up. Justin convinced me that my grandmother had broken his grandfather's heart. You know what, Justin? I got angry. What? He answered defiantly. I'm sick of this. Me too. We have to bring them together. Yes, what? Justin was taken aback. They have to talk. It's not as easy as simple as it looks. We had to team up to put the new plan into action. And while we were together, I felt alive again. No matter what was going on between our families, I still loved Justin as much as he loved me. On the appointed day, my grandmother and I arrived at the museum, and Justin and his grandfather came too. With my parents' money, it wasn't hard to make our plan work. When the old folks met in one of the rooms with rare exhibits, the alarm went off, the doors locked, and they were left alone. And we lurked to watch them. "Staying here with you is torture, Shepherd." Grandma sat on the couch. "It's mutual, Rosalind." They started arguing again. I thought it would never end. But soon, our old folks moved on from business to personal matters. "You left me alone. You broke my heart." "I can argue about that." Grandpa hit the floor with his cane. "Money got to your head, Shepherd. You took half of what was in our safe." "I had my reasons, Rosalind." "I knew those reasons. Greed and pride. I wanted to propose to you, and you ruined it." "What?" Justin and I crawled out of hiding. "So that's why we're stuck here." The prisoners glared at us. "This isn't about us anymore." "Grandpa, you wanted to propose?" "I loved Rosalind, but she made a scene before I had time to surprise her." Shepard looked at my grandmother disapprovingly. But then, his gaze turned soft and sad. My grandmother also changed her tone and sat down again. "Why did you leave? Why did you leave me?" "My heart was broken. You said a lot of things to me back then." Justin and I looked at each other, and our anger and despair began to build up. "Seriously?" I couldn't take it anymore and started pacing nervously around the room. All this animosity that lasted for generations was because of this? You just didn't listen to each other and broke up. "Grandfather, you told me about betrayal, a crime. All this because of a fight? I'm sick and tired of my parents' lies." "Yes, I was emotional, and I exaggerated things." Grandpa scratched his mustache guiltily. "I guess I went a little too far, too." Grandma lowered her eyes. Justin and I didn't listen to their excuses anymore and called our parents. When they came over, we made them talk about it. We left so we wouldn't have to listen to their arguments. They almost destroyed our love because once upon a time, two lovers simply had a fight. A conflict that lasted for generations was finally over. Our relatives merged their businesses, and Justin and I were left alone. Now we're together. And by the way, we're not the only ones. Remember, sometimes one simple conversation after a fight can help avoid huge problems. Learn to listen to your loved one and do not give in to insults. Have you ever had a silly fight that led to big problems? Write your answers in the comments and share this video with your friends. Subscribe to the channel to see more interesting stories.
快手，拥抱每一种生活。